Welcome to Silver Wisdom, practical advice for health, life, and well-being after 60. Let's grow wiser together. You have been deceived your whole life. They told you that masturbation was shameful and something you should have outgrown by the time you reached 50. However, what nobody mentioned after 60 is that masturbation is not only natural, but could also be the difference between vibrant living and decline. I've dedicated over 30 years to treating men just like you. My name is Dr. Michael Carter, and I'm a urologist as well as a professor specializing in men's health at Baylor College of Medicine. I have witnessed the hidden consequences of neglect, shame, and false information. Too many good men suffer not from illness itself, but from what they never fully understood. The reality is most older men masturbate incorrectly or stop altogether, unaware that how you touch yourself, how frequently, and with what focus can influence your hormones, your cardiovascular health, and even your brain. One simple action, if done improperly, can lead to erectile dysfunction, feelings of depression, and even prostate troubles. On the other hand, when done correctly, it can elevate testosterone levels, enhance sleep quality, and maintain the health of your vascular system. This is not merely about pleasure, it is about safeguarding your bodily functions, restoring intimacy, and resisting the effects of aging, which begin in the nervous system. Shortly, I will reveal 7 important truths about masturbation every man over 60 should have learned many years ago. But before that, ask yourself this question. If a single part of your daily habits held the secret to improving your health, mood, and energy, would you want to know it? If you want to find out what this is about, stay with me because what you are about to discover could transform the next 10 years of your life. Before moving forward, if you have not done so already, take a moment to subscribe and activate the notification bell. This way, you will never miss another trustworthy and science-backed health tip created especially for men at your stage of life. If what I say resonates with you, type 1 in the comments below. If not, write 0. Your feedback helps me tailor content that genuinely supports you. Now let's dive in, starting with a truth many men only hear after problems have already appeared. Chances are you have been masturbating in a way that feels natural and innocent because you have done it for years or even decades. However, after 60, what once seemed like a harmless routine may begin to have negative consequences without you realizing it. Here lies the most overlooked error older men make regarding self-pleasure. It is subtle and silent, but over time it can cost you much more than you imagine. The first secret is that thoughtless masturbation can bring about numbness and erectile difficulties. I want to share something that I wish more men felt brave enough to openly discuss. Throughout the years, I've seen hundreds of older patients come into my office quietly embarrassed, avoiding eye contact and speaking in barely audible tones. When we finally had an honest conversation, I would ask, "Do you masturbate?" Almost always there was a pause before the admission. "Yes, but I do not feel much anymore," or "I cannot finish unless I do it." One striking experience is when someone says, "It's like my body forgot how to." What they failed to realize was that the way they had been masturbating, quick, mechanical, and disconnected, had actually conditioned their body toward dysfunction. The consequences often appear slowly and quietly, but can be deeply harmful. Mindless masturbation goes beyond a mere bad habit. It becomes a neurological training cycle. Each time you hurriedly perform the act with tension in your shoulders, scrolling through intense images using the same hand in motion and expecting the same result. You're teaching your brain to link arousal only with that specific routine. Unfortunately, the brain learns this connection quickly. Over time, your sensitivity decreases, the quality of your erections diminishes, and you might find yourself requiring more stimulation, higher pressure, or new tactics just to reach the same level of pleasure you once had. As a result, responding to a real partner grows more challenging. Intimacy starts to feel strange, too slow, or too genuine, leading some to avoid it altogether. This is when the real harm begins, not just physically, but emotionally. Many men experience a downward spiral filled with frustration, shame, or even depression, believing their bodies are broken. Yet in many cases, the body is not broken, but has been trained incorrectly. This pattern of conditioning can cause conditions such as porn-induced erectile dysfunction, often called PIED, as well as delayed ejaculation or, in some instances, total anorgasmia, the inability to reach orgasm. Difficulty reaching climax is a common issue. These problems quietly affect millions of men worldwide. The harsh reality is that many are unaware they have brought these troubles upon themselves unintentionally. However, the most concerning aspect is this. When your body becomes conditioned in this way, and you do not change course, the consequences extend far beyond sexual performance. You lose your self-confidence, your ability to connect with others diminishes, and you start to withdraw. The relationship you have with your own body becomes distant. You begin avoiding physical contact and intimacy. For numerous men, this feeling of isolation opens the door to far darker experiences, such as emotional detachment, depression, and even early signs of mental decline. I have witnessed this pattern repeatedly. The toll is not limited to the bedroom. It affects your soul, the way you carry yourself when you enter a room, and even how you stop recognizing yourself in the mirror. There is a gradual fading of your presence. I'm not here to judge or criticize you. My goal is to open your eyes. The positive news is that your body has the ability to relearn. The nervous system can recover. But this requires awareness, patience, and a new approach to self-pleasure. This method should be slower, more mindful, and deeply connected not only to physical sensations, but also to your emotions. Masturbation itself is not harmful, yet engaging in it without consciousness is like putting your vehicle in motion and flooring the accelerator without steering. Over time, you are bound to crash. By the moment you realize the extent of the damage, repairing it can be much more time-consuming than expected. Here is what many men do not understand. Many people do not realize that while careless masturbation can cause harm, there is something equally dangerous hiding in plain sight, something even quieter and far more widespread, and it is actually celebrated by society. In the next secret, I will explain why completely avoiding masturbation after 60 might be the very thing that gradually undermines your health from within. If you are still with me and these insights resonate, type the number 1 in the comments to show you are following along. Now, let us continue, because there is something crucial you need to understand. The next secret is that masturbation reduces prostate congestion and inflammation. I recall a man from several years ago. Let's call him David. He was 68, proud and reserved, the type who did not like to discuss private issues. Yet he came to see me because he was waking up 5, sometimes 6 times during the night to urinate. He described feeling pressure, a sense of fullness, and a dull ache deep within his pelvis. He assumed it was simply the effects of aging catching up with him. What he did not expect was my question. When was the last time you ejaculated? He stared at me as if I had asked something ridiculous. Years ago, he replied. I have not been intimate since my wife passed away. And to be honest, I thought men my age were supposed to stop doing that. That response perfectly illustrates the widespread misconception that once you reach a certain age, 60, 65, 70, you should just shut down the whole system. But this was my reply to David, and it is what I want to share with you. When you cease ejaculating, your prostate does not stop functioning. It continues to generate fluid. If this fluid is not expelled, it accumulates, forming a kind of stagnant pool within your body. This buildup leads to prostate congestion, swelling, discomfort, and, over time, serious health complications. The prostate is not meant to hold fluid indefinitely, and when it does, it becomes enlarged, inflamed, and irritated. This causes symptoms such as a sudden need to urinate, a weak urine flow, dripping afterward, and sometimes discomfort during urination or ejaculation. Many men assume these signs are simply a part of getting older, but actually, it is a system overwhelmed and pressurized. Now, this is where things become critical. Long-term inflammation of the prostate has been associated with a higher risk of developing prostate cancer. I am not claiming that abstinence directly causes cancer, but I am emphasizing that regular ejaculation helps to lessen the inflammatory environment that may make the prostate more susceptible to illness. There is further evidence. A large research study conducted by Harvard followed almost 30,000 men for several years and discovered that those who ejaculated at least 21 times per month had a notably reduced chance of getting prostate cancer compared to those who did not. This is not a myth, but scientific evidence. Let me return to David's story. After we spoke, he realized what was really happening inside his body. He began touching himself again, not driven by desire or loneliness, but by a sense of care. Gradually, his symptoms diminished, the pressure eased, and his quality of sleep improved. More than anything else, A spark returned to his eyes as he reconnected with a side of himself he believed had been buried long ago. Ignoring this issue carries consequences far beyond a few restless nights. It means constant discomfort, reliance on medication that might not be necessary, and possibly undergoing surgery in the future. Moreover, it could even lead to a heightened chance of developing cancer simply because of the misconception that, at your stage in life, you should no longer prioritize this aspect of your health. You would never disregard your heart or blood pressure, so do not neglect your prostate. Now, imagine I told you that the shame men experience regarding this topic, years filled with guilt, silence, and unease about self-examination, actually intensify physical symptoms. This is precisely what the following insight uncovers. Upon realizing the link between emotional suppression and bodily deterioration, your perspective on your own body may change forever. There is a silence that often occupies many older men, something I notice frequently in my practice. It does not appear in their words, but in what remains unsaid. It reveals itself when their gaze shifts away as I inquire about sexual habits, when their shoulders slump as masturbation is mentioned, or when they dismiss the topic with laughter, change the subject, or say, "Doc, I don't do that anymore. That was for when I was younger." Yet the underlying message is clear. It is not that they have stopped because they want to. At some point, many were taught that continuing was wrong. Let me be honest with you. This silent and unspoken shame is one of the most harmful forces affecting your health today. For many years, you grew up in an era where touching yourself was labeled as unclean, sinful, or weak. You might have faced punishment, mockery, or felt deep embarrassment. Those initial lessons did not vanish. Instead, they hid within you. They settled in your nervous system and deep within your being, quietly influencing how you relate to your own body even now. The consequence of this is a subtle withdrawal. You start to detach from physical contact, even when you deeply long for it. Desire begins to feel improper to you. You stop touching yourself, not because of lack of desire, but because you have been taught to believe it is wrong. Over time, this separation goes beyond just emotions and turns biological. What many men do not realize is that regular, healthy sexual contact, including masturbation, actively supports mental health in clear, measurable ways. It controls cortisol, increases dopamine, encourages oxytocin, the hormone responsible for trust and connection, and even improves sleep, mood, and thinking skills. Unfortunately, shame interrupts all these benefits. Shame tightens muscles, raises stress hormones, and creates endless guilt cycles in the mind that become almost invisible. Shame acts as a constant stressor and chronic stress. It is connected to anxiety, depression, heart ailments, immune system problems, and even memory loss. I once had a patient, aged 72, recently divorced and deeply despondent. He was not taking any medications nor had significant health problems, yet he felt completely drained, emotionally numb, and isolated. He shared with me that he had not experienced any form of sexual activity, alone or with a partner, for more than 10 years. "I thought that chapter was finished," he said quietly, revealing a silent sorrow not for the absence of sex, but for the loss of his own identity. Together we progressed gradually, without medications or dramatic shifts, just straightforward exercises aimed at helping him reconnect with his body, free from shame or pressure. After several weeks, there was a noticeable change. He began standing with more confidence, enjoyed deeper sleep, smiled more often, and his blood pressure improved. He was not cured, but he found a way back to himself. This is the cost shame imposes. It drains your energy slowly, inch by inch, making you believe you are too old to feel alive. But that is not true. You are never too old to treat yourself with kindness, respect, and meaning. You are never too old to feel complete. If shame alone can cause such profound harm, imagine what happens when hormonal decline adds more difficulty. The next revelation is one few men anticipate. Testosterone levels do not simply decrease because of aging. They fall more rapidly when you disengage entirely from your sexual self. Once this hormonal balance starts to shift, the impact is far-reaching, influencing much more than just sexual health. Experiencing it transforms your mindset, your movements, and your entire lifestyle. This is exactly what we are about to explore next. If you are still with me and finding this content valuable, Type the number 1 in the comments to show you are present and engaged. Now, let us proceed with the 4th revelation, which may surprise you. Secret number 4 reveals that testosterone is triggered by sexual activity, even when alone. I want to share something that most men only realize when it is too late. Something I wish every man beyond 60 could understand clearly without shame or hesitation. Testosterone, the hormone that powers your energy, strength, motivation, confidence, and sexual desire, does not simply decline gradually because of age. This is the common belief you have been led to accept. But here is the reality I have discovered after working for decades with men like you. Testosterone levels also fall when you stop living like a man who still wants to feel vibrant. When sexual energy is neglected, hidden, or suppressed under layers of shame and inactivity, your body starts to reduce its masculine functions on its own. It signals, he does not require this anymore. Consequently, it reallocates its resources, changes hormone flows, reduces blood circulation, conserves energy, and your muscle tone diminishes, belly expands, sleep quality declines, and the spark, the edge that defined you, begins to disappear. This happens not because you are aging, but because your body is no longer reminded that you are alive, present, and capable. I recall a man named Frank, 73 years old, a retired firefighter who once radiated strength and confidence. When he first came to see me, he was slouched and exhausted, confessing that he hadn't felt like himself for many years. He said, "I'm just slowing down." However, when I examined his lab results, I noticed his testosterone levels were barely above the threshold of clinical deficiency. When I asked about his sexual activity, he simply shook his head and said, "I don't see the point anymore." That mindset itself is the true danger. It is not the age on the calendar, but the moment you stop regarding your sexuality as a vital, living part of your identity. I worked with Frank to help him reconnect gradually, not with anyone else, but with himself. We practiced simple, shame-free presence. Over the following months, not only did his hormone levels begin to rise, but his posture improved. His voice gained depth, and he started lifting weights again. His eyes sparkled anew when he talked. The body reacts to what it receives attention from. When you neglect your sexual self, your testosterone levels decline. But when you revive it through intentional solitary touch, you send a message to your brain saying, "I still need this. I still want to feel." In response, the brain reactivates the systems that have been dormant for many years. This is not merely speculation. Research has demonstrated short-term rises in testosterone after sexual stimulation, even when alone. Studies reveal how erotic imagination, physical interaction, and anticipation can influence hormone balance, mood, and drive. Your body listens carefully to the signals you give it. The body is designed to react to pleasure, connection, and presence, and when it receives nothing, it gradually starts giving back nothing in return. The consequences are more severe than many men realize. Low testosterone has been linked not only to exhaustion and sexual problems, but also to heart conditions, diabetes, mental decline, depression, and even a shorter life expectancy. Testosterone is not merely a figure. It is a crucial indicator of how connected you are with life itself. Sadly, most men fail to notice how far they have drifted from their true selves until reclaiming that connection seems almost unreachable. Yet, there is a path back, and it does not begin with medication or surgery. Instead, it starts by restoring your bond with your body on your own conditions, in your own space, without any shame. This process involves signaling your biology that you are still fully engaged. If this statement sounds surprising, wait until you discover what comes next. There is something even more essential than testosterone, and many men unknowingly harm it every time they handle themselves improperly. Erectile function is a use it or lose it mechanism. Many men come to believe a quiet falsehood after they reach 60. It goes like this: if I am not sexually active, I do not need to worry about erections anymore. I have heard this excuse many times, as men dismiss concerns about their ability because they assume they have aged out of needing it. However, most doctors fail to emphasize clearly that erectile function is not solely about sex. It is fundamentally about blood circulation and nerve health. Maintaining cardiovascular health and overall longevity is essential. I once treated a patient named Harold, who was 69 years old, a man with a solid history and intelligence. However, he had gone 5 or 6 years without a single erection, not because he was unable to have one, but because he felt there was no reason. After his wife passed away, He was not dating and believed that chapter of his life had simply ended. What he did not realize was that his body was not patiently waiting for him to decide to return. Instead, it was beginning to shut down. Many men fail to understand this. The penis is similar to any other muscle and blood vessel structure in the body. When it is not used, the tissues lose their elasticity, blood vessels become rigid, oxygen flow reduces, and tiny tears and fibrosis, the hardening of soft tissue, start developing. Eventually, even if a man wishes to become sexually active again, the organ no longer responds as it once did. This decline is not a result of aging, but rather due to lack of use. Here is where the real cost emerges, and it is significant. When regular erections cease, the smooth muscle in the penis starts to deteriorate. The fragile blood vessel network responsible for filling the organ with blood becomes less effective. Nitric oxide, a crucial chemical for triggering erections, declines. What no one usually explains is that this process happens regardless of whether you are trying to be sexually active or not. It is a fundamental biological response. If the body does not undergo frequent arousal and blood flow, it assumes the system is no longer needed. Gradually, the harm experienced is not only physical, but also psychological, as the brain struggles with the body's diminishing ability. When confidence starts to fade and your self-esteem decreases, you begin to feel less like yourself. This change is not due to getting older, but because your body no longer reacts the way it used to the sense of identity you once held. For many men, this results in withdrawal, sadness, and even early signs of mental decline. I've observed this process unfold not suddenly, but gradually, quietly, and entirely preventable. So what steps can you take? You can remind your body that it still matters, that this system is still essential. You can achieve this without a partner, without pressure, and without shame. Regular erections, achieved through self-stimulation or even non-sexual arousal, help keep blood circulating, tissues oxygenated, and neural pathways active. This practice is not about pursuing pleasure for its own sake. It is about safeguarding a vital part of your physical health and sense of self. Maintaining the ability to have erections is about much more than sex. It sends a signal to your body that you are still involved, still connected, still alive. I understand how easy it is to retreat into silence, especially when society suggests that once you reach a certain age, you should become quiet. But silence comes at a price, and your body remembers everything. You might ask, if erections are so important, what else could be harming your natural ability to achieve and sustain them? This question leads us to a problem even more harmful than inactivity, a modern addiction that many older men fail to notice until it has already altered their brain. We will explore this in the next section. Today we are going to discuss how pornography, even the seemingly innocent variety, can quietly diminish your sensitivity, your arousal, and your pleasure. Secret number 6 is that pornography reshapes your brain, but you have the power to regain control. I want to address a subject often hidden in the shadows, particularly among older men, and that is pornography. I realize that even hearing the term might make some of you uneasy or want to look away. Yet if you remain with me, I ask you to listen attentively and openly, because what follows could deeply alter how you understand your mind, your body, and your sense of masculinity. I have met men in their 60s and 70s who confess to still viewing pornography, not out of obsession, but because it remains one of the rare ways they can still experience sensation. Many of these men live alone. Some are divorced. Others have lost their partners. They are not seeking excitement, but rather connection, or at least the memory of it. However, what nearly none of them realize is that today's pornography is vastly different from what they encountered in their 20s. In the past, images were static or softly suggestive, while now there is a relentless stream of fast-paced, high-intensity, instantly gratifying content. The human brain, especially one that is aging, is not designed to handle this kind of overload without consequences. Each time you watch pornography, especially the extreme or rapid kind, your brain releases dopamine, a chemical tied to pleasure and reward. Motivation, reward, and pleasure are closely linked, but over time, continual exposure dulls your brain's reaction to natural triggers. It becomes increasingly difficult to feel excitement from simple, genuine touch. You start to require stronger sensations and more novelty just to experience any response at all. This is not only about preferences, it involves changes in the brain's chemistry and the way your neural pathways are reshaped by repetition. When your brain becomes trained to anticipate artificial, exaggerated stimulation, your body adapts accordingly. Erections may start to become less reliable, and reaching orgasm can turn into a struggle. Some men even face complete erectile dysfunction triggered by pornography, where they can only perform in its presence and not with a real partner or on their own. The impact extends far beyond just intimacy. I have witnessed men spiral into feelings of shame, anxiety, and frustration. They begin to think they are irreparably damaged, withdraw from others, and feel utterly defeated. Sadly, they never connect the cause and effect. They fail to see that the very thing they turned to for relief was quietly draining their energy and vitality. But I want every man listening to realize one important truth. This situation is not permanent. You are not damaged beyond repair. Your brain, even after 60 years, holds the ability to recover, to reset, and to rediscover the genuine, rooted experience of arousal. Healing starts the moment you step away from artificial stimuli, allowing your body to reestablish a connection with reality, with presence, with sensation, with imagination, and indeed, with yourself. Silence. Some individuals decide to completely avoid any visual stimuli for a period of 30 days, while others prefer a more gradual approach. What truly matters is that you start to restore your nervous system's connection to pleasure on your own terms. The aim is not to renounce pleasure, but to regain it and make it genuinely yours once more, to experience something authentic. If adult content has diminished your sensitivity, the next insight might resonate even deeper, because although digital media can manipulate your brain, isolation can manipulate your spirit. The last truth I want to reveal could be the most crucial of all. It is not about method or chemistry, but concerns the transformation a man's body undergoes when physical contact ceases entirely. This is secret. 7. The gravest error: isolation. Among the many risks faced by older men, one stands out as more perilous than reduced testosterone, more detrimental than adult content, and more severe than any physical symptom. This is isolation, not merely meaning living alone, but a profound kind of silence where one stops being touched, stops touching oneself, stops connecting with one's own body. This often happens not out of choice, but because somewhere along the way, men are taught that at their age they should leave that part of life behind. I recall a gentleman named Peter. He was 76, a retired engineer who was polite and well-kept, yet there was an emptiness in his voice when he described his daily existence. Peter told me that he had not experienced any physical touch for over 1 year. No embrace, no hand on the shoulder, no gesture at all. He did not express it with sorrow, but with acceptance, as if it were merely a chapter that had reached its conclusion. What Peter failed to understand was that touch is not a mere indulgence. It is an essential biological necessity. The human body, even at 60, 70, or 80 years of age, remains programmed to require it. When physical contact is absent for too long, the nervous system begins to slow down. Levels of oxytocin decline, stress hormones increase, blood pressure rises, sleep becomes disrupted, immune defenses weaken, and, most alarmingly, the brain starts to shut down emotional and sensory pathways in a protective response. In essence, when touch disappears from our lives, numbness sets in. Not only physical, but emotional too. We lose our vibrancy. Our impulse to interact with life diminishes. This decline happens gradually and silently. One day you merely miss your usual routine. A week later you avoid your reflection. A month on, and you stop imagining any form of joy. What is rarely mentioned is that isolation often begins in the bedroom when a man ceases to touch himself, not simply for pleasure, but to connect with his own presence and self-awareness. His mind then perceives this as emotional withdrawal. Over time, this retreat reinforces itself. He touches less, feels less, and comes to believe there is nothing left to experience. The true cost is not just the loss of erections or dwindling desire, but the gradual erosion of identity, purpose, and emotional acuity. It is a silent fading away. The sense of disconnection and isolation has been closely connected to depression, heart disease, and even premature death, not due to age, but because of a feeling of abandonment. This abandonment is not caused by others, but rather by oneself. Let me be clear, this is not about blaming anyone. Life happens, losses occur, and distance grows. But what should never happen is giving up. The act of touching yourself, whether for sexual reasons or not, is not about vanity or routine. It is about reclaiming your body as still belonging to you, about signaling to your brain, your heart, and your nervous system that you are still present, you still matter, and you still want to feel. I have witnessed men revive themselves simply by allowing permission to reconnect, to break the silence, to return to touch, and to awaken parts that fell silent too early. When this happens, their posture shifts, their voice regains fullness, and their inner spark begins to shine once more. If you are still with me, and something here resonates with you, then what follows might be the most crucial part. Now that you have encountered the 7 truths no one ever shared with you, I'm going to guide you on how to restart step by step through a straightforward yet powerful practice. This daily ritual is something I share with my own patients to help rewire the body, renew sensitivity, and repair what time and silence tried to erase. In conclusion, if you have arrived this far, I want to address you not just as a doctor, but as a man who has spent many years sitting opposite other men, understanding their struggles and helping them reclaim their lives. Listening to their anxieties, their regrets, and at times their quiet aspirations, what we have discussed today goes far beyond simple masturbation. It is about the deeper connection you have with your own body, how you carry your personal history, and whether you are prepared to accept that your life, your sexual experience, your emotional state, and your physical condition are not finished just because society decided they should be. We began with the reality that repetitive, thoughtless masturbation can gradually train your body toward dysfunction. Moving mechanically, disconnected, and unfocused is not harmless. It is rewiring your brain and diminishing your sensitivity. We considered how completely avoiding ejaculation may result in prostate congestion, inflammation, and potentially raise the risk of cancer. Your body is meant to keep moving, and when this stops, various systems begin to fail. The conversation included the invisible toxin of shame. How many men still carry blame that does not belong to them? Blame passed down from cultural norms, religious beliefs, or family traditions. A guilt that has no rightful place in a healthy man's relationship with his own body. Furthermore, we examine the fact that low testosterone is not merely a consequence of aging, but can worsen when you disconnect from your sexual self. Surprisingly, something as simple as mindful solo touch can help to reverse this trend. We also discussed how an erection is much more than a sexual response. It is an indicator of cardiovascular health, a true measure of vital well-being. The principle of use it or lose it means that neglecting this aspect affects more than just intimate moments. It impacts your self-esteem, your drive, and even your ability to remember. When discussing pornography, we do not aim to condemn, but to illustrate how it changes the brain's chemistry. This is not a question of morality, but of biology. What once brought thrill can gradually dull your sensitivity to real life. Lastly, we explore the most harmful error of all, which is isolation. When you cease to touch, to be touched, or to connect in any way, your body begins to withdraw not only from pleasure, but also from purpose, emotion, and life itself. The key message I want you to grasp is straightforward. You are not broken, you are not beyond repair, and you are not isolated. Every system in your body, even at this moment, wants to respond to connection. Your brain still craves feeling, your heart still longs to open, your skin still remembers what it means to be alive. The path back does not depend on anyone else. It begins with you. It starts with the decision to stop shrinking away, to stop apologizing for the desire to feel good in your own body, and to stop accepting the false belief that age renders you invisible. You are not invisible, you are very much here, and how you choose to act matters deeply. This is the advice I share with my patients when they are ready to begin anew, not through medication or guilt, but through mindfulness. I offer them a simple daily routine that I name the Golden Protocol. For 10 minutes each day, they dedicate quiet, deliberate, and respectful time to reconnect with themselves. There is no agenda and no pressure, only presence and self-compassion. Touching, breathing, and being present can become a sacred moment for many. For some, it is a morning habit, while for others, it is a way to end the day. Yet, it almost always marks a significant change. When a person explores their own body with tenderness, not out of routine or desperation, but driven by genuine curiosity, a transformation occurs. The body recalls its sensations, the mind unwinds, the energy reignites, and perhaps you can experience this too. This practice is not just about reclaiming your sexual identity. It is about rediscovering yourself, beginning right here and right now, with you.